What's going on, everybody? Well, War for the Planet of the Apes just came out this past weekend, so it's time to rank the entire Planet of the Apes franchise. Would have had this video out a little sooner, but 4 of these movies I actually had to watch for the first time this past weekend. So I bought the box set, revisited all the old movies. Of course, I've seen the original. Everything after that had to do for the first time, and here's my official ranking for the Planet of the Apes franchise, starting off with number 9, which is Beneath the Planet of the Apes. This movie was terrible. I'm sorry. It's not even a fact of it being dated. It's not even a fact of it being just kind of not as good as the first one. Everything about this movie just aggravated me. I mean, it's like a weirdest continuation possible from the great iconic story of the original Planet of the Apes. Charlton Heston's in it, and then he's not, and then you get Charlton Heston light, and whatever the main actor's name is, looks exactly like Charlton Heston, acts exactly like Charlton Heston, and then Charlton Heston comes back at the very end, and then it just goes in so many weird directions. You get these people who worship nuclear bombs, and then they take the little skin masks off, and they look like Cenobites. Just so many weird things about this movie. It was boring. It was not entertaining at all, and it made me fearful for the next 3 movies I was about to watch in that series. But luckily, the quality went way up from there, in my opinion. So, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, bottom of the barrel for this one. That movie sucked. Number 8 is another terrible movie that I have absolutely no desire to watch ever again for the rest of my life, and that is Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. Tim Burton is not one of my favorite directors at all. If you've been following me for any period of time, you know that. The only movie of his that I honestly enjoy is Pee-wee. Other than that, I really don't like his directing style at all. I don't like the way that he tells stories. I think his art direction it's all style and no substance, and this is no exception to that. His 2 remakes are the worst remakes, among the worst remakes that's ever been made. Planet of the Apes and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, to me. Planet of the Apes is just a weird, ill-conceived, lazy retread trying to top the original Planet of the Apes, which is a foolish thing to try to do in the first place. Apparently, there was a lot of drama going on behind the scenes between him and the studio, so maybe this is not all his fault. I'll at least be fair and say that, but whoever the hell's fault it was, this movie's terrible. Mark Wahlberg, I love the guy, but he's bad in this movie. You get Tim Roth as the villain, who's just a mustache-twirling villain. The makeup is great. I mean, it's definitely better than 1968, or fucking better should be. But just everything about it, the storyline, the multiple twists that they throw in at the end, especially the final twist. I mean, it's iconic for making absolutely zero sense and being one of the worst endings of all time. So this movie's god-awful. I'll never watch it again. Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes is number 8. Number 7 is going to be what most people would put at the bottom, and that's Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Now, to be honest with you, this is not a great movie, especially after the movie that came before it, which you're going to see later on in this list, but I like the way that it ended and continued the story of Caesar. You got to see Roddy McDowall again. The only thing that really holds this back for me, honestly, is that it just doesn't quite have the stakes or the darkness of Conquest. That seemed like a good direction that this franchise should have taken, and this one kind of took a step back from that. The villain, I forget his name, but the one who basically starts the coup against Caesar and murders Cornelius and everything, not acted very well at all, not a very convincing villain, not threatening at all. But it's a decent enough end to the original Planet of the Apes franchise. It's a decent enough sequel to Conquest. I definitely didn't hate it by any means like I did the bottom 2, so not the best at all, but better than the bottom 2. That's my number 7. Number 6 is Escape from the Planet of the Apes. The strangest entry in this because it's the most light and hokey and so 70s of any of the Planet of the Apes movies by far. The opening of the movie, just the music, the way that the titles come on, it reminded me of Austin Powers. It's that light and that strange of a tonal shift from the first 2 movies to Escape from the Planet of the Apes. But you've got Zira and you've got Cornelius, who are the apes from the very first movie, and he was in the second movie, but he wasn't played by Roddy McDowall, so technically I don't consider him the same character. But they escaped right before the nuclear bomb went off in Beneath the Planet of the Apes. They land on Earth in the past before apes have taken over, and they're basically stuck in a human's world in the past trying to figure out not only how to fit in here, but they're also in a bit of a sticky situation because they let some details slip that apes eventually will take over the world, and then they have this big conflict with the humans that are left there. Now, I really enjoyed the movie. It was a nice tonal shift. It was a nice breath of fresh air from the first 2 movies. A huge quality change from Beneath the Planet of the Apes. And it's definitely the most fun and probably accessible of the entire franchise, honestly. You could let kids watch this, with the exception of the third act, which is one of the strangest tonal shifts in any of these movies because it's very light, very hokey, and very, accessible. And then the third act, it gets really dark, really gritty, really tragic and brutal out of nowhere. So that was such a strange brick in the face whenever I was watching this movie. Like, whoa, that came out of absolutely nowhere. But very good movie. It's one that I actually would not mind revisiting a couple of times. So I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So that is why it is number 6. Number 5 is the only other classic Planet of the Apes movie that I have seen pieces of throughout my entire life, and that's Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. My dad had the Laserdisc from the time that I was born, or somewhere around there, whenever Laserdisc came out. Seems like it was my entire lifetime. And this was the only Planet of the Apes movie that he had on Laserdisc, so it would be popped in at our old house continuously over the years. So I always remember seeing pieces of it. I always remember seeing the ending speech from Caesar. I always remember seeing the opening credits and everything. So I have memories of pieces of this. First time I actually watched it the whole way through the other day, and this is a surprisingly dark and gritty chapter in the Planet of the Apes. It was kind of the first time that this character of Caesar came forward, played by Roddy McDowall, who's the same actor who played his father Cornelius, so that was really cool. You get Ricardo Montalban, for all you Star Trek fans out there, as a character. He's kind of like the owner, the zookeeper who really cares for Caesar. And I like the drama that gets created between Caesar and the humans. Like, one of the most iconic scenes in this movie is when they're beating on an ape, and Caesar screams out like, "You damn human bastards!" So that's a really iconic scene. I like how it escalates. This is the 1960s version of the story of Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Rise took a lot of inspiration from this one. So along that same storyline, he makes this big revolt, this big revolution, gets all the apes together, teaches them how to fight, teaches them how to revolt against the humans, and it just goes into some really dark and bloody places. The blood is a little bit funny, watching it in a 1970s movie, where it almost looks like literally red fluorescent paint, but I mean, it's sign of the times. But a really cool movie, really enjoyable, surprisingly dark. I enjoyed it, and it was a cool introduction to the character that we will be talking much more in depth on later on in this video, Caesar. Really good movie. Conquest is number 5. Number 4, which Planet of the Apes purists will go ahead and call heresy that I have it this low, but you know what? I'm going to justify that decision while I'm talking about how great this movie is. Planet of the Apes, the original 1968 classic, is my number 4. Now, there's no denying that this movie is a classic. There's no denying that it is groundbreaking. There's no denying that this movie started it all. There's no denying the amazing story that it goes on, and how groundbreaking and unique and innovative and ahead of its time that it was, especially the makeup for the time and the ending. Like, you can definitely tell Rod Sterling's writing, the guy from Twilight Zone, is all over this thing, because it feels like a longer Twilight Zone type story. But what holds it back for me is because how amazing the top 3 are, and you can guess what my top 3 are going to be in whatever order. But Planet of the Apes, there's not really any flaws with the movie necessarily. It's just a little bit dated. That's the only thing you can say against it, and that's a strange criticism, because sometimes it's insulting to say its movie's dated when it was so iconic and so groundbreaking for the time. But when you watch it now, there's just no question that the top 3 that I'm about to get into, the emotional gravity of those movies, the depth of those movies, the storyline, the characters, they're superior to the 1968 original Planet of the Apes. So, not taking anything away from how iconic and how amazing the original Planet of the Apes is, but it is my number 4. Number 3. Now, to be completely honest with you, my number 3 and my number 2 are basically tied. I kind of had to put them in the order that maybe over time they will be a little bit more solidified in this order, but as it sits right now, really this is a tie for number 2. But what the hell? Number 3, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Now, I expected nothing from this movie when I first saw the trailer. You see a trailer for a CGI heavy Planet of the Apes reboot, especially after the Tim Burton reboot. You see James Franco. As much as I love him, you see him in a Planet of the Apes reboot, and you're like, oh, this cannot work at all. Totally wrong. Movie blew me away. You get Andy Serkis given one of the best characters, the birth of one of the best characters that we've seen on film in 10 to 15 years. James Franco was great. You got a lot of really good human characters. John Lithgow was a great character. So much emotion, and it's so much of a surprise that the movie is Caesar's movie. You expect it to be a James Franco vehicle, and he's not at all. He's kind of the catalyst that gets the movie going, and he's definitely a major character in the movie, but this is Caesar's story, and that was a huge shock when I saw this the first time. And then you get the whole story about the prison break and how he kind of leads these apes and kind of grows to get their respect and their fear to a degree that, you know, I'm the alpha, you are the omegas. That's a great path that this movie takes. It's just such an awesome movie that surprised the shit out of me. As far as flaws, really just a couple small little nitpicks as far as the human characters, a few conveniences here and there, but a really great setup for what was to come later on in this list. So that is number 3, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Number 2 is the movie that we just got War for the Planet of the Apes. Now, this was a great final chapter to this trilogy. It's what capped off this trilogy and made it one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Definitively, there's no argument. It's almost a perfect trilogy because War capped it off so well. So I walked into this and I damn near was holding my breath the whole movie, like, please don't mess this up, please don't mess this up, please don't mess this up. And War was phenomenal. You get such a great growth from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is another thing that is just great about this trilogy, is that the movies just grow and build upon the movie before it, and War is no exception to that. You get a great villain in Woody Harrelson, who's a little bit more evil than some of the other human antagonists, but you still understand exactly where he's coming from as far as his motivations, trying to preserve the human race, trying to preserve humanity, and try not to go extinct as a race and a species. You get a lot of really cool action sequences here and there, but the movie's not really a war movie. The first act's like a war movie, second act's like a revenge tale, the third act's like a prison movie, so it has a lot of different genres and a lot of different tones going on, and they all mesh together really well. They really utilize the characters of Maurice and Rocket really well. You get a great new character of Bad Ape, who's hilarious. That on paper that character should ruin the movie and should be so weird and jarring, but he's not. He actually adds to the movie. He gives levity in just the right amount and just the right moments. You can check out my full review for War for the Planet of the Apes if you want to hear me gush about it even more, but I thought it was an amazing third chapter, one of the best third chapters that's out there. I can't wait to watch it again. That's my number 2, which leaves The Dawn of the Planet of the Apes as my number 1. One of my favorite movies of all time, definitively. I think it is damn near a flawless movie. The only small negative I have with this is the character who's like the asshole human, the one who screws it up for everybody, the one that basically lets the audience know, I'm the dickhead who doesn't listen to anybody and I'm going to screw it up for everyone and put everyone in danger. That character lays it on a little thick for me when I watch it now. That's the only small flaw with this movie. Other than that, I think it's perfect. I love the growth of Caesar from Rise to this as the leader. The Andy Serkis performance comes through even more when the emotion that he brings to the character, especially just in his eyes and the few lines that he has. I love the relationship between Caesar and Koba, and even though Koba is the villain in this, or he becomes the villain, again, just like Woody Harrelson, and even to a greater amount, you understand completely where he is coming from, because he did not have the experience that Caesar had, where he was, loved by humans and nurtured by humans and a part of a family. Koba was tortured and experimented on and cut open by humans, so you understand 100% why he looks at humans and says, fuck that, we are not helping them. And it just builds to this awesome climax between Caesar and Koba, where honestly there's such great and rich characters that even though Koba definitely takes a dive into much more of a kind of a unsympathetic evil direction to where you definitively know that he's going to be the bad guy at the end, you kind of don't want either of those characters to go away at the end of this movie. They're that great of a character. And you got a lot of really good human characters like Jason Isaacs, and you got a villain who should have been really badly written in Gary Oldman, but again, just like Woody Harrelson and just like Koba, you understand 100% where this character is coming from. You understand exactly why he is doing the things that he is doing, why he wants the humans to do this, why he does not want the apes to prevail, and it's just such a great, dramatic movie, so deep, so emotional. I could go on for hours about how awesome this is. Like I said, one of my favorite movies, definitively in my top 10 of all time. It's that good, and that is my number 1 Planet of the Apes movie. So that does it for my ranking of the Planet of the Apes franchise, guys. Have you seen all the movies or just the new ones? Have you seen the old ones and have not experienced the new trilogy yet? That's a crime if you have. Put all of your rankings down below in the comment section for the Planet of the Apes franchise. I'm really curious to seeing how everybody ranks this franchise. So go ahead and do that, guys. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. Share this video. And if you want to check out my social media links like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, those are down here below, along with my Patreon page, so check that out. And if you want to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.